Alright, so this is Chapter 18, the urinary system. The urinary system can be quite complicated and complex, and we could spend a lot of time on it, but we are going to very briefly talk about the main functions of it, and we're going to keep it very brief for the urinary system. So let's start off with the components of the urinary system. The urinary system is going to consist of the two kidneys, so there's a left and a right kidney. Now from each of these kidneys there's a tube that comes down from them that connects it to the urinary bladder. These are called the ureters. So there's a left and a right ureter coming from the left and the right kidney. Okay, then the two ureters empty the urine into one urinary bladder, the same urinary bladder. They both merge into the same bladder. The bladder stores the urine, and then it leaves through the body through the urethra. So there's only one urethra as well. Okay, so this is a picture right here. You've got the left and the right kidneys. From the kidneys, you've got the two ureters, which is these yellow tubes right here that come down. They both merge into one urinary bladder, stores the urine there, then it gets released through the urethra. Okay, and I just want to for the lab especially, I want to make sure that you are aware of the spelling of these words. This is ureter, urethra, and then when we get to the reproductive system, we're going to talk about the uterus. Okay, so be careful of the spelling of the words. I can't tell you how many times students have combined the words. If you combine the words, I don't know which one you mean. Okay, so you have to be very careful of the spelling of these words so that I know what structure you are talking about. Okay, so the functions of the urinary system, first of all, excretion. Okay, it excretes the waste. These wastes are filtered out of the blood, and it makes up what we call urine. Urine is our liquid wastes. Okay, blood volume and blood pressure is going to be controlled by the urinary system, and that is because the urinary system controls how much water is in the blood. Okay, so with the urinary system, if the urinary system increases the water excretion, which means it increases the amount of water in our urine. So urine would be very diluted. It would be a very pale color because it's mostly water. Okay, so if there's a lot of water in the urine, that decreases the amount of water that's in the blood. So that decreases the blood's volume. If you decrease the blood's volume, there's less blood in the blood vessels, putting pressure against the walls of the blood vessels. So if you decrease the blood volume, you decrease the blood pressure. Okay, so increase the water output, you decrease blood's volume, that decreases blood pressure. Okay, the opposite is true if you decrease the water excretion. Okay, if you decrease the water excretion, the urine is going to be very concentrated. It's going to be a dark yellow color. So if you decrease the amount of water that's lost in the urine, that means there's more water put into the blood's volume. So that increases the blood's volume. If you increase the blood's volume, there's more blood in the blood vessels, so that is going to increase the pressure that the blood's exerting against the walls of the arteries. Okay, so by regulating how much water is lost, it regulates the blood's volume and blood pressure. Okay, the next one is the concentration of the solutes. Okay, the solutes in the blood are going to be filtered by the kidney, so it regulates a lot of the concentrations of the major molecules and ions, such as glucose, sodium ions, that Na+, chloride ions, Cl-, potassium. All of these are going to be regulated by the kidneys. The next one is the pH regulation, and the kidneys are going to secrete variable amounts of the hydrogen ions. Remember, the hydrogen ions, the measure of the hydrogen ions is the measure of the pH. So by regulating the hydrogen ions, it regulates the pH. Okay, the next one is it regulates the concentration of the blood cells, the red blood cells, and that's because, remember, we talked about that hormone, that erythropoietin, That's the hormone that makes red blood cells, and that is produced by the kidneys. So the kidney produces the erythropoietin. The erythropoietin increases the production of the red blood cells. So the kidneys also do that for us. Okay, and then the last one is the vitamin D synthesis or production, and that the kidneys are also going to regulate that. They're going to regulate how much vitamin D gets produced by our bodies. Okay, so those are all functions of the urinary system. Okay, so let's talk about the kidneys for a minute. Just some general characteristics of the kidneys, the size and shape of it. It's shaped like a bean, and you've probably heard of eating kidney beans, and the reason they call them kidney beans is because they're shaped like our kidneys. Each kidney weighs about 5 ounces. It's about the size of a bar of soap, or about the size of your fist. If you make a fist, that's about the general size of your kidneys. Okay, they are located on the posterior abdominal wall, so it's located behind the peritoneum. So when we dissect our pigs, you will have to cut through the peritoneum to get to the kidneys. Okay, so you'll be able to see that on the pigs. Okay, the structure of the kidneys. The kidneys have several important features. First of all, the renal capsule. The renal capsule is made up of connective tissue. It surrounds each of the kidneys, and this is going to protect the kidneys. It acts as a barrier protecting the inside part of the kidney. Okay, so then the kidneys are going to be subdivided into different regions. You have the outer region, which is called the cortex. Remember, the word cortex means the outer region of something. And then you have the medullary region, which is the middle region of it. So you have a kidney that's shaped like a kidney bean. And then you have the medullary region, is this middle portion of it right here. So that's the medullary region. And then you have the cortex region, which is the outer region. So all of this area right here is cortex. All of that's the cortex region. Okay, so if you look at this illustration of the kidneys, you've got the renal the renal capsule, that tough connective tissue layer on the outside of it. Then you've got the cortex region. The cortex region is from this structure to the outer part. So this area right here, all this area on the outer portion, all of that is the cortex. Then the medullary region is this center part where the pyramids are. The pyramids are these structures right here. So all of this right here is the medullary region. So the pyramids are located in the medullary region of the kidneys. And then this is an actual kidney that's been dissected, and you can see the different regions. You've got the cortex, is this part right here, and then you've got the medullary, this area right here, and then these are the pyramids in the medullary cavity. The medullary region. Okay, so the functional unit of a kidney is called the nephron. Okay, the nephron is the actual unit that does the filtering for our kidneys. They are microscopic. A nephron, the kidneys are going to contain over 1 million nephrons, and these are little microscopic little structures that filter the blood. As the blood flows through them, they filter out the waste products. And I'm going to go through the components of the nephron for you. The nephron is going to be composed of the renal corpuscle. The renal corpuscle gets broken down into 2 components, and that's the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. And I'm going to show you this on an illustration in just a minute. Okay, so the renal corpuscle is then going to filter the waste or the urine into the proximal tubule. Proximal meaning closest to. So this is the tubule part that's closest to the renal corpuscle. Then from the proximal tubule, it goes down and back up, and that loop is called the loop of Henle. Okay, the loop of Henle is where it goes down and back up, so there's a descending part and there's an ascending part. Okay, and the water and solutes are passing through thin walls at this point, and they're being filtered through by diffusion. Okay, from the loop of Henle is going to move into the distal tubule. Distal, remember, is further from the point of attachment, so the distal tubule is more distant from the renal corpuscle. Okay, so that's the distant part of it. And from here, the waste products are going into the collecting duct. The collecting duct is the duct that takes the waste products and dumps it into the calyxes of the kidney, which are the large tubes that are going to drain it out. It carries the fluid from the cortex region to the medullary region, and then out of the kidney through the ureters. Okay, so let's look at a picture of the nephron right here. Okay, so this right here is all within a pyramid. So this whole unit right here is within the pyramid. If you look at the kidney, all right, the kidneys, it's showing you this section right here has been taken out and enlarged. Okay, so you have this right here, the cortex region, and then this is the medullary region. So on this area that's been enlarged, this right here is in the cortex region, so it's right here, and then this right here is the medullary region. So this is the actual pyramid part, and that's right in this area right here. Okay, so this right here, this yellow structure is a nephron, and they're showing you one nephron right here, and then they're showing you this one is cut in half so you can see what's inside of it. Okay, so this little bulging part right here, that's the renal corpuscle. The renal corpuscle is made up of the two components. If you cut that in half and look at it, it's made up of the component right here that has the blood vessels networking through it. Okay, so these blood vessels are carrying the blood into the renal corpuscle, and that's the glomerulus part, and then the blood the waste products are diffusing out of the blood into the Bowman's capsule. The Bowman capsule is this part right here that surrounds the glomerulus. Okay, so the waste products are diffusing from the glomerulus, from the blood in the glomerulus, into the Bowman's capsule. Then from the Bowman's capsule, the waste products is moving into the proximal tubule. This right here is the proximal tubule, called proximal because it's the closest to the point of attachment, closest to the renal corpuscle. Okay, so this part right here is the proximal tubule. Then it goes into the loop of Henle. This part right here is the loop of Henle. So it goes down and then it comes back up. This is the ascending part of the loop of Henle, the descending part of the loop of Henle. Okay, then it becomes the distal tubule. The distal tubule is the part of the tubule that is more distant from the renal corpuscle. So it goes into the distal tubule, and the urine and the waste products is moving down the distal tubule, and that is going into the collecting ducts. It becomes the collecting duct right here. The collecting duct then merges into the calyx of the kidney. Okay, the calyx is this part right here. The big tubules that are coming off of the pyramids is the calyxes. Okay, right here, this shows you right here a better picture of it. Okay, so this right here, okay, this right here is the renal corpuscle that is made up of the glomerulus with the blood vessels and the Bowman's capsule. So the waste is filtered from the blood into the Bowman's capsule. From the Bowman's capsule, it flows into the proximal tubule, and it goes through the proximal tubule. Then it goes down to the descending part of the loop of Henle, then the ascending part of the loop of Henle. Then it goes into the distal tubules, and then it goes into the collecting ducts. From the collecting ducts, it dumps into the calyxes. Okay, so these calyxes right here, this is the minor calyxes right here, those merge into a major calyxes. Okay, so the major calyxes brings it into this region of the kidney, which is called the pelvis region. And then from there, it goes into the ureter. And then the ureter brings it down into the bladder and stores it until it's ready to be released through the urethra. Okay, so let's back up to this right here shows you the flow of the filtrate or the waste products through the nephron. So it gets filtered at the renal corpuscle, moves into the proximal tubule. From the proximal tubule, it goes down into the descending loop of Henle, and then back up through the ascending loop of Henle. From there, it goes into the distal tubule, into the collecting duct. The collecting duct empties it into the calyx of the kidneys. The calyx of the kidneys empties it into the renal pelvis, the big open area in the kidneys. And from there, it goes into the ureter, which brings it down to the bladder and stores it till it's ready to be released from the urethra. Okay, so you do need to know this path of the waste products, path of the urine. Okay, and that was it. So if you have any questions about this chapter, let me know.